Hey guys, welcome back in here to Legacy. So I wanted to make a second video today because this is something that's been sitting with me for a few days, and I just wanted to answer it. And it's D&D related, but not direct. Okay, so that is, are the D&D novels any good? Are they decent books? The reason I mention that is I've been reading through Verdant Passage by Troy Denning. And I've read a lot of the D&D novels. I've read Spellfire. I've read Pulls of Radiance. I've read all that kind of stuff. So, I've read Night of the Black Rose and a bunch of other novels that are D&D. And I just wanted to address, are the D&D novels worth picking up? And if so, which ones? So I'm going to start this off by saying there is a hard limit to where I would stop reading D&D novels. And that would be around 2012, 2014. That's when D&D novels begin employing sensitivity readers and changing core elements of the lore that had been established for sometimes 30 years um, and stuff. So that's where I would cut off, would be around 2012, 2013. But that being said, not everyone has to agree with that. I'm sure there are good D&D novels that have been written past that. I just personally don't read beyond that point. Um, all that being said, so let me answer the primary question, then I'm going to get into some of the secondary parts of it. Um, yes, D&D novels are worth reading. They are very decent books. Um, and I'm going to qualify it. They're decent books if you're looking for good popcorn books that are just kind of dumb fun. Um, if you're not looking for like a super deep philosophical fantasy, if you're not looking for a fantasy that gets into real world issues and all that kind of stuff, D&D novels are perfectly serviceable um, because of that. Now, that's not to say they don't have problems. There are problems with the D&D novels and the D&D stuff around the game. Certainly, the writing for D&D novels can be at times juvenile. And I don't mean immature. I mean written very, very baseline. Not written very deeply, not written very complicated in any capacities, and that's part of the issues with them. Um, there's also the issue that D&D novels tend to be. I'm trying to think of the right way. What phrases? They tend to be, because they are popcorn books. They tend to be popcorn books. That means you're not going to get a lot out of them. There are a lot of D&D novels that we'll read that you won't remember a lot of, um, because the books just are not super memorable. There are exceptions to that. I Strahd, Night of the Black Rose, Dragonlance Chronicles, some of the early Drit stuff um, certainly would fall in the category of being memorable. But there's a lot of them that you could read that are just not going to be super memorable. The Harper series, one, because it's very long, but two, because it's not written to be the super memorable top tier fantasy. It's not written to be Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. It's not written to be Lord of the Rings. It's not written to be Realm of the Elderlings. It's written to be D&D fantasy. Um, and because of that, it is very, at times, unforgettable, or very forgettable. I'm sorry, very forgettable. Um, so you got to take everything together when you're talking about whether or not they're good. Um, some of the authors are kind of mid grade. Um, I wouldn't. I like Troy Denning. Just taking Verdant Passage for example, I like Troy Denning's work, but Troy Denning is not a top tier fantasy author in my opinion. I think he's a good fantasy author, but I don't think he's a top tier. And I think that very few fantasy authors that have written for D&D have ever gone on to really be uh, really well known outside of D&D fantasy. Um, like I said, if you think of Troy Denning's writing, you think of Waterdeep, you think of the Prism Pen Pod. If you think of, you know, Ed Greenwood, you think of the Elminster books, things like that. You don't think of them outside of those books. The exception, of course, would be Salvatore, however you say his name. Um, Definitely hit, the Demon Saga. Demon War Saga definitely falls into that category of being good on its own. Weiss and Hickman have written several series outside of D&D that are very, very well received. Deathgate, Dark Sword, yada yada. So very few of the D&D authors, I think, would be known as household fantasy names outside of their D&D work. Um, so take all that together, though, they are good. They're good for what they are. That's the way I'm going to phrase that. They are very good for what they are. And if you were just looking for a 300-page, stupid fun book that fills your fantasy itch, D&D novels will do it for you. Which brings me into which ones would I suggest reading? Um, Strahd, definitely P.N. Ron's take on Strahd is amazing, especially if you're a fan of Ravenloft. Uh, Absolutely a wonderful book. Really gives a great backstory and a full flesh out to Strahd prior to the events of Ravenloft, the original I7 Ravenloft. So you really get an idea for who Strahd is. Um, Absolutely, would read that one. Knight of the Black Rose, similar story with Lord Soth. If you want to know Lord Soth's full story, Knight of the Black Rose absolutely is a wonderful book. Um, does a great job of really fleshing out Soth. You really kind of feel sorry for Soth until you realize Soth has always been the bad guy. Um, there are times you're going to feel sorry for him, though, when you read that book, because Soth has a pretty sad story. Definitely Dragonlance Chronicles and the Legends books, Legends trilogy, both are worth reading. Great books. Chronicles, because if you ever want to fall in love with a set of characters, especially super trophy characters, Dragonlance Chronicles, man. Tanis, you have Tanis, you have Sturm, you have Blint, you have Tasselhoff, you have Raceland. You have all the characters. They're all tropey as hell, but they are amazingly fun characters to follow through those books. And then the Legends trilogy is just incredibly well written. Goes very much further into Raceland's story, while not losing focus on the other characters as well. So they're really good books. Um, those are really good books. Um, I, Prison Pen Todd is always recommended among D&D fans, especially if you love Dark Sun. The Prison Pen Todd does a great job expanding on the base lore from the books, and actually goes outside of the base lore and goes beyond the lore in the game, and expands out the world while expanding the lore. Very good books. Definitely, I would recommend probably at a minimum the first three trilogies for Dritz. Um, or the first, I'm sorry, first I said first 10 books, because the third series is a quadrilogy. Great books, incredibly fun characters. Regis is one of my favorite characters. Jarl Axel turns into an absolutely amazing villain. That if you've never read them, Jarl Axel's an amazingly great, complicated villain. Uh, all the characters, Brunar Battlehammer, all those guys. I mean, the books are just fun. They're fun. They're great, and they're easy reads. You'll read one of them in about, even at a slower pace, about a week. A good pace, you could read them in a couple of days. But normally, I'd say 5 to 6 days, you're reading a moderate pace. Um, you know, those are definitely worth reading. Elminster books are really fun to read. I will say this about Greenwood. Greenwood's prose is a little dry, a little prolonged. So reading Elminster may not be for everybody, but I would suggest at least trying them, because you get a really good idea for the most famous wizard, one of the most famous wizards in D&D. Um, Throughout all those books, he's just a great character. Um, and he does a lot outside of those. Like if you read Pulls of Darkness, Pulls of Radiance, and all that, and Pulls of Light, and all that kind of fun stuff. Great series. Waterdeep by Troy Denning. Really good look at the city of Waterdeep, how it works, the characters inside of Waterdeep. Uh, Definitely on my list. Uh, and then there's even the ones written by Gygax himself are pretty okay. Um, they're not bad. Again, they suffer from Gygaxian language, but not bad books. Um, you can read you could read Temple of Elemental Evil and those books, and you're not going to be disappointed, I think, by them. Um, some of the ones I would stay away from. Um, Spellfire is okay. I read it. I didn't read beyond it because Spellfire took me so long to get through because there were so many parts in that book that just dragged. It was kind of boring. So I would say stay away from that one unless you're a hardcore Forgotten Realms fan. Um, they're okay. Like I said, they're serviceable, but not anything special. Um, you know, uh, if you're looking for off the beaten path authors, I've mentioned a lot of big name authors. If you're looking for off the beaten path authors, uh, Cause the Minotaur by Richard A. Knack. Absolutely wonderful book. Cause is a great character, wonderful character actually, and you get a really cool look at how the Minotaur Society inside of Anselon works. Um, they play a lot of inside baseball in that book with the Minotaurs. Great book. The Legend of Huma, another really super good looking book. Really fleshes out the idea of Huma and who he was and everything else. Um, so, guys, to answer the question simply, yes, read D&D novels. Don't let people downplay them. Don't let people piss on them. You're not looking at anything special. You're not looking at anything like groundbreaking. I think that the groundbreaking novels were the originals from the 80s. Things like the Dragonlance Chronicles, even though kind of tropey, was kind of groundbreaking because it was the first time somebody had written for an IP like D&D. Um, you know, Ed Greenwood's early Elminster books, things like that. His later books are a little more off the beaten path, but they're definitely still very good. But if you're wanting good fantasy that's just kind of fun and kind of I'll use the term empty calories. Um, D&D novels are not a bad way to go. They're not. Um, they're not. They're like reading Star Wars novels to me. Um, some good, some bad, some awesome, some have memorable moments, some don't. Some of the books are really hard to get through. Some of them are very easy. Some of them read like you're reading textbooks. Some of them read like you're reading an old pulp magazine. I mean, just as far as ease of reading. So keep that in mind. Um, but if you've never tried one, try them. You won't be disappointed, I don't think. Um, and the best part is, for anyone who doesn't want to support WotC or anything, a lot of these books are available secondhand. You can get a lot of these books off of used markets, half-price books, thrift books, your local used bookstores, things like that, without ever giving a penny to Wizards if you absolutely don't want to give money to Wizards, which I totally understand. Most of my books are used because I buy so many books. I can't afford to buy new. So if you are looking for that stuff, yeah, give D&D novels a try, man. You never know. You might find a book series you've never read before that absolutely blows you out of the water. And there are plenty of them set across all the different worlds. There's Spelljammer novels, there's Birthright novels, there's Forgotten Realms, there's Dark Sun, there's Dragonlance, there's Planescape books even. Although I will say Planescape books are slightly expensive, if you're ever curious about them. But either way, guys, I'd love to hear what you guys think. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you have a favorite D&D novel or favorite D&D author, please leave it in the comments. I'm perfectly happy to hear from you guys. As always, though, just follow the 3 rules. No ad hominems, no picking fights, no college dissertations. Other than that, guys,